Hello and welcome to the Daily Aus. I'm Sam Koslowski.
I'm Billi FitzSimons.
Just before we jump into today's deep dive, a huge hello to everyone watching us over on our YouTube. We're trying to get to 20,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel by the end of June. Not long left and we're nearly there. So if you can help us with one button, we will be forever grateful. Now let's get into today's topic. Meta just made its second largest acquisition ever, buying AI company Scale AI for $21 billion and sparking what's being called Silicon Valley's most extreme talent war. On today's podcast, we're going to unpack why tech giants are spending hundreds of millions of dollars on AI and offering nine-figure salaries to lure the best minds in artificial intelligence.
Sam, when you pitched this yesterday, you're basically like, the tech bros are fighting and we need to cover it.
The tech bros are fighting with money.
Yes.
They are really fighting with money.
So I want to understand all of this more. But first, I want to understand this $21 billion deal that happened last week. So what exactly did Meta buy?
So Meta bought a 49% stake in this company called Scale AI. It was $14 billion US dollars, so 21 billion Aussie. And Scale AI are basically a company that specializes in human-powered data collection. And what that means in reality is they employ thousands of humans, both in physical workplaces, but also lots of remote workers, to help train machine learning models. And they're the systems that power AI.
So how is that different to other AI companies?
So they are employed by AI companies to help work through information and basically tag the information as a good response, a bad response, as particular data being a successful way to frame something not successful, basically giving AI feedback. As you might say, if you're talking to ChatGPT, I didn't like that response, can you go again? These guys do it on massive scale. And so they're essentially helping AI companies with the quality of the information. And their customers, to give you a sense of who they're working with, their customers include the US Army, OpenAI, so they're working with what we see at ChatGPT, pretty much every major car brand, so working on internal car technology, and Meta. So this is a case of a customer becoming a part owner or nearly a majority owner because they obviously see so much value in the product.
So they don't necessarily have a product though, it's more their employees who are so well trained in AI.
It's basically a service.
Yes.
So if you plug us into your system, we'll make sure that your data is being tagged and labeled, and think of it like almost a Gmail inbox. We'll make sure that the data is going in the right folders so that when your customers, you and I, ask ChatGPT or whatever you're using for a response, it's got a pretty good idea of the types of answers it should be giving.
Got it.
And the founder is considered one of the world leaders in AI at the tender age of 28. His name's Alexander Wang, and he's now going to lead Meta's new AI division. And remember, this is Meta's second biggest acquisition ever. They own Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. So this is a massive investment for them.
Just a quick side note, when we were looking at this yesterday, we came across the very fun fact that the founder, Alexander Wang, used to be the roommate of the CEO of OpenAI, which owns ChatGPT.
Yeah,
so,
Sam Altman.
Sam Altman.
And he's going to play a part in this discussion in a sec. But can you imagine the discussions in that college dorm?
So two of the biggest names in AI used to be roommates.
It's phenomenal. And it's really interesting to remember that as we now discuss the talent war that's coming, because Sam Altman made some pretty big comments on a podcast this week that's kind of inspiring the way that we're thinking about this. He said that Meta are offering $100 million signing bonuses, so 154 million Aussie or thereabouts, to try and poach his company's employees. And that's not a typo, $100 million just to sign on, and then you get paid.
That's crazy. So Meta is trying to poach the employees of OpenAI with upwards of $100 million.
Yeah, and to understand this from a Meta perspective, there's been a lot of reporting that says that Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Meta, has stepped into what people call founder mode, which is essentially he is on the tools in the room with this new AI team as the key priority for the company.
Kind of making all of the calls.
Exactly. One Meta employee told Reuters this week, Zuckerberg is calling researchers directly, flying them to his house, costs whatever it takes.
Wow. Let's take a step back here. Why are these companies spending such astronomical amounts on AI?
I think this is a really interesting point that we don't spend enough time when we cover AI and actually considering is we're talking about hundreds of billions here, hundreds of billions are there. Why? Like, why is there so much money flying around? And I think the costs can really be broken down into three main areas. So the first is data centers, the physical storerooms, warehouses, fields, as far as the eye can see, of servers. And that's a lot of computing power. Microsoft and OpenAI have announced plans for a $100 billion data center project called Stargate for 2028. And that's going to house thousands of chips that process all the data needed to train AI systems.
Can we pause for a second?
Yeah.
Because this is something that always confuses me, that the amount of technology, like physical technology that is required to power even just something like ChatGPT. Like, how can we kind of conceptualize that?
You basically need to think about your laptop having one chip in it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you put your laptop into a bag, doesn't weigh nothing. It's got a bit of weight to it. Now think of 1 million chips and laptops with tiny chips and servers with tiny chips stacked on top of each other. And now think of the fact that they can't be directly next to each other because they might get too hot. So they need to be spaced out a little bit. And now think about the fact that as we get more and more ambitious with what we want AI to do, we need more of them. We need more brain power. There are some places, particularly in the US, who are really investing a lot into these data centers. There are some places which are so big that you need cars to drive around inside them that are just for the storage of data chips.
Wow.
So it's a massive scale. And of course, the other part of this, though, is the energy consumption. And that's actually the second real cost to these companies. There is enormous amounts of electricity and water needed. Water is needed to cool down the systems. Microsoft's water usage jumped 34% between 2021 and 2022. And this was at the beginning of the AI revolution.
And that's because Microsoft partly owns OpenAI, which, as we said, is the maker of ChatGPT.
Exactly. And to put that stat into perspective, that's 2,500 Olympic swimming pools, just an increase 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So can you imagine what it is today? There was one study I was reading from a university in Amsterdam that said that AI could require the same amount of energy as the entire country of the Netherlands by 2027.
Wow.
So we're talking almost like there's another nation on the planet in terms of carbon emissions. And then the third cost is cloud infrastructure. So I've taken you through the hardware, the stuff on the ground, then the power that's needed to power that stuff. But we haven't even talked about the cloud yet. And building the systems to deliver AI services to users takes a lot of power in creating connections. I mean, you and I don't have a data center under our desk. We tap into it wirelessly. That takes a lot of power and energy and cost as well.
And so that's why buying something like Scale AI, which Meta has done, is so expensive.
Partly. I think there's a huge amount of what the company is required to spend to keep it operational that contributes to that price tag. The other part of it, though, is the talent and the intellectual property. And that, at the moment, you almost can't put a price on.
I think something that's interesting to talk about here is kind of the historical context of all of this because, you know, we've seen technology kind of revolutions quite a bit, especially over the past century.
Sure.
Is this different to that? Like, how important is this in the context of what we have seen in terms of advancements of the last 100 years?
I feel like we're at the stage where it's not controversial to say this is the real deal. This is really big. And if we just look at the behavior of the world's biggest companies as an indicator, then we can see that they think AI is the next big shift, the next seismic shift in the way that we live our lives. And I think what's really interesting about where we are in the AI tech world is that there's so much investment because we still don't know what AI could be capable of. So it's not like there's a benchmark that's been set that now everybody's trying to reach and spend heaps of money trying to get to. It's that people are spending money because they don't know what they don't know. And that's what's really interesting. There's this idea called artificial general intelligence, or AGI. And that's basically AI that can do the same thing that you and I can do. So it can write stuff and it can make decisions and all of that kind of stuff. But there's also a thing called artificial superintelligence, which is AI that is smarter than you and I. Not smarter than you. You're the smartest person ever. AI that's smarter than me. And in February, talking about artificial superintelligence, Zuckerberg said this year is going to set the course for the future. AI is potentially one of the most important innovations in history.
So what I'm hearing is they're kind of buying into the potential of it.
Exactly. They're buying into the potential of understanding that the moves they make now could dictate their economic future and how much profit they make for the next, 50 years.
Yeah. And they don't know exactly what that potential is, but they're pretty sure it's very big.
Yeah. I've been thinking about the space race, for example. Like, we know that there was a race to get to the moon. You could see the moon. Whoever got there first would win the race.
Yeah.
This is a different type of race because nobody actually knows where the finish line is here. And so the amount of money being spent is not spent on just trying to get to that end point. It's what's beyond that.
Okay, and so I want to go back to this talent war that we spoke about, the race to get people in the room who are the best and brightest at working out the capabilities of AI in real time. Sam, I'm most surprised that no one has tapped you on the shoulder yet, but I'm sure
I'm waiting.
I'm sure it's coming, Mark Zuckerberg. It's just a call away, I'm sure.
When I talk you through these salaries, you're going to understand why I would do that.
I'm sure you would. How extreme are we talking?
We're talking 9 figures. So we are talking salaries in the hundreds of millions in US dollars. So, I mean, if you're at the top of the game in the AI space, you could easily be looking at a salary of $400 to $500 million a year.
Just so hard to comprehend that.
So hard to comprehend, especially with a sign-on bonus of $100 million that I talked to you about earlier. There was a great line in an article I was reading from a tech recruiter. He said, we're seeing signing bonuses that exceed what CEOs made a decade ago. And this is just the beginning of all of this. There was another researcher from Stanford who said the key to winning isn't just computing power, it's the people who know how to use it. And I think this is the key to this talent war. It's that anyone could buy warehouses of, massive machinery and chips. And by anyone, I mean anyone with that sort of money at their disposal. But the people who know how to harness that and quick, they're going to be the really valuable assets in Silicon Valley. And most of those people already have jobs in AI. And that's why you're seeing this bidding war with talent trying to drag people from one place to another.
And so when I mentioned at the start that you kind of pitched this as the tech bros are fighting, you also mentioned that Sam Altman had some things to say about Meta kind of stealing or poaching his employees. What exactly did Sam Altman say about this and about the sign-on bonuses?
Well, that's the interesting bit we learned from Sam Altman this week was we didn't know about these $100 million sign-on bonuses before an interview that Sam Altman gave on a podcast. And he didn't hold back. He called these offers crazy. He said that Meta was offering not just these signing bonuses, but these hundreds of millions of dollars worth of salary. And the really interesting part is that Altman also said that despite these massive offers, none of OpenAI's best people have taken Meta up on them, at least not yet.
Why would they not accept those offers?
Well, according to Altman, he said that it's about culture and mission. And you can start to see a bit of competition really emerging between these tech billionaires. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that when a company focuses so heavily on upfront guaranteed compensation, rather than the work and the mission and the growth of the company, it doesn't set up a great culture. Everyone's kind of there, according to Altman, because they got a very sweet package to land there. And when they're there, they don't really want to be there. And he took a direct shot at Meta's ability to innovate. He said that Meta's push into AI is the same as when Google tried to push into social media a decade or so ago. And it was clear to people that Google weren't really going to compete with an Instagram or a Facebook. And he said that it feels a bit similar here with Meta's AI efforts, that they're kind of in a realm that they don't deserve to be in, which is spicy.
That is quite a big claim and quite a big criticism.
Yeah, and it's particularly a big criticism to give to somebody who's offering your employees hundreds of millions of dollars to go over there. But Altman raised the possibility that even if they do join Meta, and even if they do try and achieve this super intelligence that Mark Zuckerberg's talking about, we aren't going to see AI change the world as much as we think it could. I thought that was so interesting from the head of OpenAI. He said that people will live their lives pretty much in the same way in 2 years' time. But when we start to have AI discovering new science, which is about 5 to 10 years away, that's when things could really change.
What does that mean, discovering new science?
So right now, scientific discoveries are made by human researchers who, run experiments in a lab and form hypotheses. They analyze results. They're using AI at the moment to analyze results and to speed up their processes. But what Altman is suggesting is that AI could actually make scientific discoveries itself. So if you think about it this way, AI could potentially analyze all the data, spot patterns that humans can miss, and propose entirely new theories, which could lead to new materials for batteries or new compounds that go into drugs or new physics theories that humans haven't thought of yet. And there are examples of this. We've seen AI discover new antibiotics. We've seen DeepMind's AI predict protein structures that had stumped scientists for decades. So if AI is starting to actually do the research itself and form its own hypotheses, that's an entirely new wave.
I feel like I've said so many times this podcast already that it is kind of hard to wrap your head around and to kind of understand what it all means. Are companies doing anything else besides throwing money at individual researchers?
Well, the interesting thing about the Scale AI acquisition this week by Meta is that clearly if they can't get the person to come over and lead their AI project and AI innovation, they're just going to buy the company and bring everybody over. And so, we've seen that with Microsoft, as you mentioned earlier. They invested in OpenAI to get a seat at the table. Google acquired DeepMind for $500 million, which seems kind of cheap in the scheme of what we're talking about today. But we're going to see more of this. We're going to see more companies getting acquired when there's an individual at the heart of the company they really want.
You mentioned Google just then, and I also saw that Google was one of the clients of Scale AI. And after this acquisition by Meta was announced, Google then dropped Scale AI or said they will no longer work with them.
You got to remember there's so much data and there's so much under the hood information that's plugged into all of these systems. And if a competitor buys something that you're using, I don't think you're going to use it for very much longer.
Where does this go from here?
Well, industry experts say that this talent war, these sign-on bonuses, these salaries are just going to get bigger. I mean, a lot of the commentary I was reading was saying that we are not too far away from billion-dollar salaries in the AI space. And the pool of experts will grow as well, but so will the demands and what's at stake for the companies to make money from all of this. And the other thing to remember is that the companies have placed their bets. They've gone all in on AI. They've gone all in on these innovations. They've told shareholders, they've told customers that this is the next big thing. And so now they're almost too far away from the start line to go backwards, but they can't quite see the finish line yet. And they just have no choice but to spend billions and billions trying to push forward as fast as possible.
Just before we end, I do think it is worth mentioning the impact that this has on employees at these companies that aren't in the AI space. We saw this week that Amazon has announced redundancies for people who aren't in the AI space.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important thing to acknowledge as well in all of these conversations.
Definitely. And there's a law floating around in amongst US legislators proposing that employers have to declare when AI is replacing the jobs of humans in any redundancy announcements that they make. So You're right, this is a major topic as well.
Sam, thanks for coming on and explaining to us your favourite topic.
Thanks so much for having me. What an indulgence.
And thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Daily Aus. We'll be back this afternoon with your evening headlines, but until then, have a great day.
See you later.